Hello. In this tutorial video, I'm going to walk an administrator through how to create electronic forms. So this is little bit more of an advanced topic, and it's one for the tenant administrators. Typical customers do not have this ability unless they purchase that subscription. So let's go ahead and find the form builder. To do that, we'll hover over the admin tab, and you'll see a subscreen called Tenant Admin. So there's some additional options on this screen that only tenant administrators will see. So you're going to find the Forms Builder here under Forms, Libraries, and Reports. So click on Form Settings to open up the Form Builder. What you'll see here is a list of all of the electronic forms you've created in eLocDoc, and they're just listed alphabetically. You'll notice there's two versions that are displayed. That really we're just showing the current published version and the previous version, just in case you need to make some changes to that. So let's go ahead and create a new one, and then we'll talk about how to manage the forms once they're in the system. So to create a new form, just click on the Add New Record button here, and you describe the form name. So in this case, let's just do a simple request form. So we'll just say demo request form. Put a little bit of a description. This is what users see on the screen that is used to select the forms. Alright, so then let me get to a couple more fields here. Now the first one is a required parameter. So in this field, you're going to pick from any one of the following parameters that you would want the users to pick before they start filling out the form. So in this system, you can choose whether an item is required, an employee, customer, an area, or location. So this really saves time when users are filling out the form, because they won't have to fill in any of this information. It's just part of the form. It gets when you print the report out or submit the form, the PDF will include whatever information you picked in the output. It's also associated permanently with the form, so you can pull it up in reports later on if needed. So let's, for now, we'll just pick, I don't know, we'll pick the location for now. And the template, there are a few templates in this system. Essentially, these are the reporting templates that you may choose from. For example, here we got an eLocDoc default, which is, of course, the default form results. But if your tenant has customized this, then you may see other options. For example, you may have special checklists, or a special form for a job equipment request. So in this case, we're just going to leave it with the default for now, and this is going to vary depending on your setup. Let's go ahead and add that. All right, so we have the demo request form in the system here, and then a few other options we can set on this form are workflow options. So I'll choose this, and essentially what we're doing here is we're telling the system what do we want to do with this form once it's submitted. The submit option is where that form is stored, so you can choose to store it in your personal forms library. So what that means is whoever's filling out the form will get stored in their personal library, versus customer forms, which is a shared library for the entire customer. So if you want the form to be shared for across your organization or that submission, you can choose that option there. Other options might be available if you need, depending on your setup. The workflow option is really what happens. Do we want to initiate a task or an approval workflow to go along with the form? This is an option. For this case here, maybe we'll say an approval step is required. If there's a custom workflow that was added to your tenant, we can describe the name of the custom here. that might be used for things like integrating with your ERP systems or other information systems. One of the other options here, when we have a workflow, we need to know where it's going to be assigned to. So there's various options here, and in this case, we can choose to assign it to, say, the location supervisor. And we know this because the parameter for the form we wanted was the location. So assuming we have set up the supervisor for that location, the supervisor will get the email for these requests. Let's go ahead and save that. So now we need to start configuring the form fields. So to do that, we have another tab at the top called Steps. So let's select that. Alright, so we have the step screen, and let's choose Add New Step for the form. So essentially what a step is, it's the question. You're asking the user to fill out something. So in this case, we have to name the step. So this is the internal name. And then the alias is what is displayed to the end user. So we could say enter your reason for this request. If we have specific instructions that we want the user to follow, we can put some additional information here. This is considered like help information, and on the form execute, when the user hovers their mouse over the help icon, this is what shows up. Underneath primary responses, we choose the type of control we want to use to get the information from the user. There's a number of different options here, and what we're going to choose in this case is going to be a multi-line text box. But you can see that you can ask the question in different ways, whether you want a combo box, a radio button list, a date time picker, etc. Alright, so that's the basic information about the step. Now we're going to describe a little bit more about how the step might get displayed in the report. On the right hand side, there are a few options to do this. First is we can choose to require the step, and that means that the person cannot submit the form without answering this question. If we want this to always display, in this case it really doesn't matter, but some steps are dependent on others and only show up when you choose an option. By choosing always display, it always displays this question regardless of its dependencies. This can be useful when designing your form. We can choose whether to include or exclude the answer to this question in the report output. In this case, it's checked off by default. And then we've got some options on where to put this in the report locations. So we get a body, checklist, task, addendum, and there's some custom sections. So let's just choose to throw this in the body for now. And that is the default if you do not check a report location. Some other options in here are a little bit more advanced, and they basically filter the steps on the screen when the user is filling it out. They're really related to equipment, and you can choose to associate this to a specific model type or component type. And if your parameter for the form is an item, equipment item, and it doesn't match this configuration, basically the step doesn't show up. For something as simple as a request form, we're going to ignore that for now. And then finally, we've got standards at the bottom here. So in your system, you may have specific ANSI or ISO standards that perhaps this set of instructions is related to. In that case, you can choose to pick the standard, and then it really just creates that association so that when you're doing reporting or compliance audits, we can do some more analytics around these responses as they relate to compliance anyway. Let's go ahead and insert this step. And once it's inserted, you can see that it'll show up here in the list of steps. So I'm going to add a few other ones, and then just going to pause this session for a second. Okay, I've added a few extra steps here, you'll see, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create some dependencies because what I did is I created a type of request, and then I want to drive other decisions, other changes on the form based on the type of request. So instead of having multiple forms for, say, issues, project requests, change requests, and questions, etc., I'm just going to have one form for that. So let's go ahead and select so we know that this is going to be where it's going to drive our dependencies. So let's go ahead and choose the severity of issue. And we're just going to make sure that this is only going to display for the issues that are the type of requests. And just for troubleshooting purposes, we want to make sure we ask for the workstation or IP address. So again, we're going to create a dependency to the type of request. Let's say an issue. So, and then here, this date required, I'm going to make this related to the project. Or actually, maybe we'll relate that to the issue as well. Just in case they need to specify a specific date the issue needs to be resolved. And then I've got a project type, so let's go ahead and ask the user a couple questions about the project. So here, for a project request, we're going to say what's the duration of the project. Maybe we'll want to know, what the budget is, and maybe why it's important to the business. And you can dream up other questions, of course. And we're just associating all these to a project request. And then the last two here, I'm going to relate them to a change request. So again, we're just creating dependencies against the type of request. All right. So that's pretty much it. That's our form. We've created just a simple form with a couple questions that is going to be used for managing requests. And we're going to know who submitted the form because they all have logged into the system. Let's just say, for example, we wanted to capture additional comments, then we could add the final step here. Comments and instructions. So, and we'll just make this a text box as well. Alright. Once we're done with the form, the next step is to publish it. Let's go ahead and publish the form. And the first time you do this, no one can see the form yet because as a tenant, what we have to do is we have to associate the forms to customers because some of our customers may or may not require or have access to certain forms. So we have to go back to the administration page in the tenant admin, go into the customers and user setup, and choose the customer we want to associate this form to. In this case, we're just going to pick the demo customer, and then we're going to assign a form here. You can see there's lots of different forms that we've assigned this demo guy. Demo request form. Depending on the number of licenses you want to allocate to them, you can choose that. Otherwise, just enter 0 and click Insert. Alright, so now that we've got the form there, let's see this work in action. So I've associated to the demo account, I've created the form, I've published it. So in theory, everything should work fine. What I'll do is go into this home screen, click on the Complete a Form button, and I should see my demo request form here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and try this out and see how things work. So I'm going to choose some parameters here, and I think when I set this form up, I wanted the location. So let's choose just the Brentwood location here. Actually, maybe let's pick the eLockdoc demo location. And now we'll fill out the form. Alright, so enter the reason for request. Again, if I hover my mouse over this, this is where the additional information goes, right? Once I've finished entering the step, I click on the next step and choose the type of request. So in this case, it's going to be, I don't know, we'll fill out a couple, but let's pick issue. And you can see only the questions I created dependencies for an issue are displaying here. The project requests, etc. aren't showing up. And then any additional comments or questions. I'll submit that form when I'm finished. So let's take a quick look at the output of the report now that it's in our activity feed. So you can see here in the request form that we have, the sample form has location information in the header and some of the information you filled out on the form. So this is your typical standard result. Of course, if you needed to customize this output, it is possible, but you would have to choose a different template. But the default seems to be pretty dynamic and should accommodate most forms. Thank you.